I'm 75 years old. I've spent half a century on my knees in the dirt. 50 years. And for the first 20 of those years, I was lied to. I bought the showstoppers. You know the ones. The catalogs put them on the front cover. Glossy photos, impossible colors. I bought oriental poppies that looked like crepe paper dreams for 10 days, then disappeared by July, leaving a hole in the bed that looked like a missing tooth. I bought delphiniums that required staking, deadheading, constant watering, and constant fussing. And for what? My garden looked spectacular for maybe 6 weeks total. Spring was a riot, but then the heat came. July hit, and my garden turned into a sea of green leaves and regret. Just a crispy brown graveyard of what used to be. I spent decades watering dirt, staring at foliage, waiting for a color that wasn't coming back until next year. I thought that's just how it was. I thought gardening was suffering. Then I discovered a plant that blooms from August through December. Yes, December. I'm talking about a plant that is covered in golden flowers, while the rest of the neighborhood is brown and lifeless. When the first snow starts falling, it's still blooming, and it changed everything. It made me realize that everything I thought I knew about perennials was wrong. Most gardeners, and I was one of them, waste money and effort on flowers that give you a moment of glory, then nothing. We chase the high of spring and accept the crash of summer. I did it for decades. But there are perennials, specific varieties that the nurseries don't talk about, that will bloom for 4, 5, even 7 months straight, with less work than those 2-week wonders ever required. I'm going to share 15 of them with you today. This isn't a list I found on Google. This is the list that took me 50 years to build. If you appreciate an old gardener sharing a lifetime of secrets, please click subscribe. It would break my heart to think this knowledge disappears when I do. The physical toll is real. At 30, I could spend an entire Saturday double-digging beds, hauling mulch from dawn to dusk. I didn't mind high-maintenance plants because I had the energy to serve them. I was a servant to my garden. Now my knees protest every time I kneel. My back aches if I bend too long. The discs in my spine predict rain better than the weatherman. But here's the truth. I still want beauty. I want butterflies and hummingbirds fighting over nectar. I refuse to stare at bare mulch for 4 months a year. And I refuse to deadhead daily or stake floppy stems in August heat. So I changed the game. Most people shop in spring, buying what's blooming now. That's the trap. Nurseries thrive on 2-week wonders. They don't show you the workhorses, the plants that bloom for 6 months and don't look impressive in pots. I walk past them for 20 years. These plants are survivors. You plant them once, and they return stronger every year. Some have bloomed in my garden for 15 years without effort. We are going to start at number 15 and work our way down to that December miracle. And I want you to pay attention, because number 15 might be common, but the way I use it, that's the secret. Number 15 is English lavender. I call this the scent of resilience. I planted a row of these along my front walkway 12 years ago. Every single time I walk to the mailbox, my pant leg brushes against the foliage. It releases that oils, that sharp, clean smell that just clears your head instantly. It's not just a plant, it's a greeting. But here is where I see good gardeners fail with lavender. They love it to death. They put it in their best soil. They water it every other day. They pamper it, and it rots. It turns black and dies. Lavender hates wet feet. It despises rich, heavy clay. I learned this the hard way after losing 3 batches in a row. I finally stopped amending the soil. I dug a hole in the rockiest, poorest dirt I had, threw the plant in, watered it once, and walked away. It thrived. It wants to struggle a little. It wants the sun beating down on it. In return, you get a border that literally hums. On a warm afternoon, you can hear the bees working the purple spikes from 20 feet away. It brings the whole garden to life. Number 14, the bleeding heart, Dicentra. Now, you might be thinking, Jamie, you're crazy. Bleeding hearts are spring flowers. They bloom in May and vanish by June. And you'd be right if we were talking about the old-fashioned spectabilis types. My grandmother grew those. They were beautiful for 3 weeks, and then they went dormant, left a big hole in the shade garden that you had to fill with hostas. I don't have time for plants that quit in June. You need to look for the fern leaf varieties, specifically one called Luxuriant. The name isn't marketing fluff, it's the truth. This plant bridges the gap. It starts blooming with the daffodils, but it keeps going. It doesn't go dormant when the heat hits. It keeps throwing up those pink heart-shaped lockets right through the summer. I have one tucked in a semi-shaded corner that I ignored for years. I went out there in August expecting to see bare dirt. It was still blooming. That's the difference between buying a plant and buying the right variety. Number 13, Black-Eyed Susan, Rudbeckia. This is the solar flare of the garden. If you want a plant that screams summer, this is it. But I used to treat this plant wrong. I used to be a very tidy gardener. I thought a good gardener was a neat gardener. So, the moment the flowers faded in September, I was out there with my shears. Snip, snip, snip. I cut them to the ground. I cleaned up the beds. I made everything look manicured. I was robbing my garden. I was robbing the wildlife. Now, I leave them. I let the petals drop. I let the centers turn black and hard. Because when the snow falls, those seed heads are like little sculptures in the white landscape. And the birds, the goldfinches, the chickadees, they rely on those seeds. I watch them from my kitchen window in January, clinging to the stems, feeding. If I had been tidy, those birds would starve. Plus, Rudbeckia is tough as nails. It laughs at drought. It doesn't care if you forget to water it. It just pushes out more gold. Number 12, Yarrow Achillea. I fought a war with yarrow in the ATS. I planted the old, wild, common yarrow, and it took over. It sent underground runners everywhere. It choked out my lilies. It invaded my lawn. I spent 5 years trying to dig it out. I swore I'd never plant it again, but the breeders fixed it. You have to find the clumping varieties. Look for names like Moonshine or Strawberry Seduction. These plants mind their manners. They stay where you put them. And the foliage? It's ferny, silvery green. It looks good even before the flowers open. But the real reason I brought it back? The shape. Most flowers in the garden are spikes or trumpets. Yarrow is a flat landing pad. It's a dinner plate for butterflies. I've watched swallowtails land on a yarrow head and just sit there, opening and closing their wings, because they have a stable place to rest. You need that variety in shapes if you want a healthy ecosystem. Number 11, the Shasta daisy, specifically the variety Becky. Not just any daisy. Becky. She's taller. Her stems are like steel rods. They don't flop over in a summer storm. And the flowers are huge, 3 to 4 inches across. But here is the insider tip. Here is what the nursery tag won't tell you. Most people get a great flush of blooms in June and July. Then the plant looks tired. It starts to make seeds. The show is over. I didn't learn the trick until year 7. I was terrified to do it. The mid-July cutback. When that first heavy flush of flowers starts to fade, you take your shears and you cut the whole plant back by half. It feels wrong. It feels brutal. You're cutting off green growth. You're cutting off little buds. Do it anyway. Water it deep, throw a handful of compost at the base, and wait. By late August, when everyone else's daisies are brown sticks, yours will erupt again. You get a complete second wave of pristine white flowers that last until the frost hits in October. I lost years of blooms because I was too scared to make that cut. Don't make that mistake. Nature is resilient. It wants to grow. You just have to give it the push. Number 10 is the purple coneflower, Echinacea. And I need you to listen closely because I'm about to tell you to do the exact opposite of what every gardening book says. Stop deadheading these. Put the shears down. Step away from the plant. For years, I was out there every evening snipping off the spent blooms because I wanted the garden to look tidy. I wanted it to look like a postcard. I was wrong. When you cut off those brown spiky cones, you aren't just cleaning up. You are removing a winter food source. I realized this on a grey January morning. I looked out the window and saw a flash of yellow against the snow. It was a flock of goldfinches. They were landing on the dried seed heads of the coneflowers I had been too lazy to cut back that year. They were clinging to the stems, swaying in the wind, eating the seeds. If I had done my chore, those birds would have gone hungry. Now, I leave them standing. They look like little soldiers in the winter landscape, and the variety you want is Magnus's. The petals don't droop like the wild ones. They hold flat, creating a landing pad. It blooms from June through October, 5 months, and it feeds the birds all winter. That is a plant that works overtime. Number 9, catmint, specifically Walker's Low. This is the plant for the lazy gardener, or the smart gardener. I haven't decided which one I am yet. I have a patch of Walker's Low near the shed. I haven't watered it in 5 years. Not a drop. It gets rain, and that's it. And every single year, it erupts in a cloud of lavender blue flowers that lasts for 6 months. The foliage smells like mint when you brush against it. It's aromatic, and here is a secret I learned by accident. Aphids hate it. I used to battle aphids on my roses constantly, spraying, squishing, fussing. Then I planted catmint around the base of the rose bushes just to hide the bare legs. The aphids disappeared. The scent confuses them, it drives them away. So you get a plant that blooms for half the year, requires 0 water once established, and acts as a natural pest control. We are a dying breed, us dirt under the fingernails gardeners. The world moves fast now. The algorithms prefer fast, fake content. 1-5-second clips of someone pretending to garden in clean clothes. If you're one of the few who still cares about real gardening, about the patience it takes to grow something beautiful, hit that like button. It tells me I'm not just talking to myself out here. It helps us find each other. Number 8, blanket flower, Gaillardia. This plant is a miracle. It loves the soil you hate. I have a spot by my driveway that is an embarrassment. It's mostly gravel, compacted clay, and heat. It cooks in the sun. Everything I planted there died. The soil was too poor. It had no nutrients. Then I threw in some blanket flower. I didn't amend the soil. I didn't add compost. I just dug a hole in the rocks and walked away. It exploded. Red, orange, and yellow flowers that look like miniature sunsets. They started in June and they didn't stop until the first hard frost in November. I learned something profound that day. Rich soil makes this plant lazy. If you put Gaillardia in a perfect, fluffy garden bed, it grows big green leaves and flops over. It gets weak, but you put it in the gravel, you treat it like a weed, it blooms its heart out, it fights to survive, and the result is spectacular. Number 7, Salvia. The variety is May Night. This is the hummingbird highway. If you sit on my porch in July, you will see a blur of green and red. The hummingbirds work this plant like it's their job. They visit every single purple spike, top to bottom, dozens of times a day. But there is a trick to salvia. It's called the June chop. In late spring, you get a massive flush of deep purple blooms. It's gorgeous. Then, in June, it starts to look scraggly. The gray stems show. Most people leave it. They get a few sporadic flowers for the rest of the summer. Don't be most people. Grab your shears. Cut the entire plant back to the basal foliage, that little mound of green leaves at the bottom. Be aggressive. It looks terrible for about 2 weeks. You'll think you killed it. But then, fresh green growth appears. And in August, you get a second, complete encore of blooms that lasts into October. You get 2 seasons for the price of 1 haircut. Number 6, Coreopsis, threadleaf varieties. This is another one that thrives on benign neglect. I see people dumping blue fertilizer crystals on their Coreopsis, thinking they are helping. They aren't helping, they are hurting. Rich soil makes Coreopsis lazy. Fertilizer makes it leggy. It grows tall, weak stems that fall over the minute it rains. I have these plants in a hell strip between the sidewalk and the road. The soil is sandy. It drains instantly. It gets baked by reflected heat from the asphalt. And they are covered in hundreds of yellow flowers. You can't even see the green leaves. There are so many blooms. Don't fertilize it. Don't pamper it. Plant it in ordinary garden soil, or even lean soil, and then ignore it. It will reward you with 5 months of golden reliability. It's the kind of plant that makes you look like a master gardener when all you really did was leave it alone. Now we are getting into the heavy hitters. These are the plants that separate the hobbyists from the obsessed. Number 5, Verbena, specifically Homestead Purple. I ignored this plant for years. I saw it in the nursery pots, looking trailing and delicate, and I thought, that thing is going to faint the first time the temperature hits 90 degrees. I thought it was a prima donna. I was wrong. This plant is iron wrapped in velvet. I planted a test patch along a stone pathway, fully expecting it to die by August. Instead, it crawled. It rooted where the stems touched the ground. It created a solid, deep purple carpet that suppressed every single weed trying to push through. And the best part? I step on it. When I'm dragging the hose across the garden or stumbling around with a wheelbarrow, I crush it. It doesn't care. It bounces back. It blooms from May until November in my garden. That is 7 months of color from a plant I almost left at the store because I judged it by its looks. Number 4, the daylily. But not just any daylily. We need to have a serious talk about the old varieties. The ones your grandmother grew. The orange ditch lilies. The big yellow ones that bloom for 3 weeks in July and then sit there, looking like a pile of grass for the rest of the season. Those plants are lazy. I don't allow lazy plants in my garden anymore. I don't have the space, and I don't have the patience. You want the rebloomers, you want Stella D'Oro, or Happy Returns. Here is the math, and it's simple. The old varieties send up one scape that's the flower stalk, and it gives you maybe 10 buds. Once they open, the show is over. A rebloomer, it sends up a scape with 12 to 20 buds, and while those are blooming, it's already pushing up a second scape, and a third. It's a relay race. My Stella D'Oro starts in June. It takes a little nap in the high heat of July, don't we all? And then it roars back in August and September. If you are still growing the one-and-done varieties, you are working too hard for too little reward. Dig them up. Give them to a neighbor you don't like. Replace them with rebloomers. Number 3, hardy geranium. The variety is Roseanne. If I could only have one flower to weave my garden together, this would be it. Notice I said weave. Most plants just sit there. They are soldiers standing in a row. Salvia stands up straight. Coneflower stands up straight. Roseanne is a weaver. She grows low and spreads, threading her stems through the other plants. She covers the knees of the roses. She fills the gaps between the shrubs. And the endurance is terrifying. I have seen Roseanne blooming in June, and I have seen the exact same plant still pushing out violet blue flowers when I'm raking leaves in November. She doesn't know when to quit. And here is the kicker. No deadheading. The flowers just drop off cleanly. You don't have to go out there and snip anything. You plant her, you water her to get her established, and then you watch her stitch your entire garden together. Number 2, Russian sage. This plant taught me a brutal lesson. You have to be cruel to be kind. Russian sage is a beast. It grows 3-4 feet tall. It creates this airy purple haze that looks like a watercolor painting. It thrives in the hottest, driest, most miserable spot in your yard. I have mine against a south-facing brick wall where you could fry an egg on the pavement. It loves it. But here is the trap. In the spring, you will see green growth starting on the old woody stems from last year, and you will think, oh look, it's coming back. I should leave it alone. Do not leave it alone. If you leave those old stems, the plant will get woody, floppy, and ugly. It will split open in the center. You have to take your shears in March or April, take a deep breath, and cut the entire plant down to 6 inches. It feels like murder. You are cutting off life. Do it anyway. The plant will explode from the base with fresh, vigorous growth. It will stand up straight without staking. It will give you 4 months of purple clouds. I was too soft for the first few years. I didn't want to hurt it, and I got a floppy mess. Now, I chop it down without blinking, and it thanks me for it every single summer. And now, we arrive at number 1, the plant that defies the calendar, Mexican mint marigold. I need you to picture your neighborhood in November. The trees are bare, the lawns are brown. Your neighbor's hydrangeas are just sticks in the mud. The world looks gray, tired, and ready for sleep. But in my garden, it is exploding with gold. While everyone else is packing up their tools and surrendering to winter, this plant is just getting started. It begins in August, just when the summer heat is breaking the spirit of the lesser plants. It pushes out these small, intense golden yellow flowers, and it keeps pushing them out through September, through October, through November. In my garden, I have seen Mexican mint marigold blooming in December. Yes, December. I remember standing at my kitchen window 2 years ago. It was a miserable, sleeting afternoon, the kind of day that makes your joints ache just looking at it. And there, against the gray sky, was this defiant splash of yellow. It was the most uplifting thing I saw all winter. It extends the season by months. It cheats winter. And here is the bonus I didn't expect. It's edible. Brush against it, and you smell licorice. Anise. It's a substitute for French tarragon. I harvest the leaves in October for roasting chicken when the rest of the herb garden is long gone. So you get food, you get fragrance, and you get a gold rush when the rest of the world is grey. That brings us to the end of the list. I'm 75 now. I don't have the energy to fight nature anymore. I used to think gardening was about conquering the soil, about forcing things to grow where they didn't want to. I was arrogant. Now, I let the plants do the heavy lifting. These 15 perennials, they work with me, not against me. They deliver on the promises the seed catalogs make, but rarely keep. You don't need to plant all 15 of these this weekend. That's too much work. Just pick one. Pick the one that spoke to you. Maybe it's the defiant gold of the marigold. Maybe it's the resilience of the lavender. Put it in the ground, water it well, and then step back. Let it prove itself to you. I've shared the best of what I know with you today. Time moves fast, and seasons change quicker than we like to admit. I won't be here forever to tell these stories. If you found value in this, please subscribe and share this with a friend. Don't let this circle of wisdom break with us. I'll see you in the garden.